Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Welcome to our seminar for today, in which we are going to talk about lesson plan. Dear colleagues, English teachers, and teachers in general, our topic for today, as you know, is very, very important. Why? Because we are going, of course, as I said, to talk about lesson planning. We have many questions for our seminar for today. Is lesson planning important for teachers? How can we develop lesson planning? What are the advantages of a lesson plan in general? Can a teacher teach or gives a lesson without having a lesson plan, without a good preparation before entering the classroom? I think the answers for all these questions are here with us. We will find answers to all these questions. Well, dear colleagues, let me first welcome my colleagues in the studio who are going to participate with me in this seminar for today. Ms. Umayma Sharba, an English supervisor from Tartus. Good afternoon, Ms. Umayma. And Mr. Abdelmajid Orly, an English supervisor in Damascus countryside. Good afternoon, Mr. Abdelmajid.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Well, dear colleagues, as I said, our topic for today is very important. Let me first ask Ms. Umayma an important question. I think all teachers will ask this question. Why should teachers do lesson planning? I mean, is it important or not? Why should we have a lesson plan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Basil. Speaking about lesson plan and why it's important, we speak about the plan before speaking about the lesson.
Yes.
Every person, when he wants to do anything, he needs a plan in order to know what to do and how to do it. He needs to need everything organized.
I agree with
I'll
you.
give an example before I start speaking about the lesson plan. Imagine going on a journey and to a place that you don't know anything about. You need a map.
Good.
This map will guide the person wherever he goes.
Where he can go.
Where he can go. So
Good.
the lesson plan is like a map for the teacher and for everything related to the lesson itself. So it's very important.
A very good answer, Ms. Umayma. Thank you very much. So we can say, if someone, let's say, has a project,
Yes.
he has to do many steps in this project. If he has no plan, he has no map. He cannot know where he, let's say, goes. So the map, as you said, guides the person where he can go, step by step.
Step by step.
Good.
That's right.
And here I have another question to you, Ms. Umayma.
Yes.
Let us first of all, in our seminar, give a good definition of a lesson plan. What is a lesson plan?
Yes.
We need to know this.
Okay,
Please.
Mr. Basil. Well, a lesson plan is the teacher's detailed description of the course of instruction.
Yes.
It means, or learning trajectory. For a lesson, a daily lesson plan is developed by teacher to guide learning. This is the first thing. By the teacher to guide the class learning. Details will vary depending on the preference of the teacher, subject being covered, and the needs of the students. That's related to the lesson itself and the importance of the lesson plan related to the lesson, to the teacher, to the student, to the classroom. And the lesson plan is a teacher's guide.
Good.
Okay, for running a particular lesson, and it includes a goal. The goal, it means what the students are supposed to learn.
Good.
This is the
So
major
this is the
goal,
first thing,
the first thing.
which is the most important thing, as I think, it's the goal,
The goal.
objective.
The objective, yes. And how the goal will be reached.
Good.
I mean the method,
The strategies.
the strategy, the procedures
Teaching
used.
strategies or methods that can be applied during the lesson.
That's right.
Good.
And a way of measuring how well the goal was reached, like the test, worksheet, homework, etc., all the things that the teacher do in the class.
Thank you.
This
Thank
is
you
the
very
lesson
much.
plan.
So, first of all, we can conclude your speech as follows. We should have a goal. A lesson plan is a guide for the teacher.
Yes.
And this guide should contain, let's say that, a goal of the lesson. I mean, maybe the skills the students should let's say,
Acquire.
acquire at the end of the lesson. I mean the students, my students, at the end of the lesson, I expect my students will be able to do so and so.
Yes.
These are, we can say, the objectives of the lesson, the skills acquired at the end of the lesson. Then we have strategies or methods applied during the lesson or used. The teacher can use many methods at the same time, of course, and he should vary, as we said before, his strategies and his methods during the lesson to reach the target or the purpose or the objective or the goal, etc. And at the end, as you said, we should have maybe some material. We should use some materials during the lesson.
To measure.
We call them some aids. These aids can be visual or
all the
any
aids
other
related.
audio,
related
yes,
to
audio
the teacher.
materials. So we can use different materials. We can vary by using our materials during the lesson. And of course, at the end, the last point will be to evaluate your lesson. Evaluation is very necessary at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Majid, I have another question to you.
Yes.
Well, when we ask our teachers, let's say, to have a lesson plan, we told them now, we have just told them why we should have a lesson plan. What is the purpose of having a lesson plan or preparing for our lesson? But let's talk about the development of a lesson plan. How can a lesson plan be developed? Please.
Well, thank you. Actually, although we have many formats for lesson plan, most lesson plans contain some or all of the elements I'm going to mention, typically in this order. The title of the lesson.
Yes.
We start the plan by writing the title of the lesson, then the time required to achieve the lesson itself. Then a list of required materials. After that, we have a list of objectives. We have two kinds of objectives. We have behavioral objectives and we have knowledge objectives. Concerning behavioral objectives, it is what we expect the students will be able to do at the lesson completion.
Good.
Concerning knowledge objectives, what students know about the lesson when the lesson finishes. Developing.
So, Mr. Majid, we can say that we have two types of objectives, behavioral
and knowledge.
And knowledge objectives.
Actually, the knowledge objective is the general objective of the curriculum in all.
Here we mean the information.
Yeah, the information.
Grammar,
Yes.
information, vocabulary, etc. We can call these knowledge. Not only grammar and vocabulary. Topics, different topics from real life.
Yes.
Experience. We are trying to increase the student's experience here, or the student's background of different information about his real life.
Yes.
This is what we call knowledge objectives.
And
What about behavioral?
Behavioral objective, when the teacher wants to plan for his lesson, he scans the lesson and looks for the details. Then he thinks about what he is going to teach the students, which means what the students are going to be able to do at the end of the lesson.
Yes.
So he finds out the objectives, the behavioral objectives, and we need to bear in mind that the behavioral objectives must be able to be measured.
Mr. Majid, let's focus on this point because I think it's very, very important. Why? Most teachers are trying to focus on knowledge objectives in our classrooms nowadays. So they focus on the information only. They don't focus on the behavioral objective. I mean, we want to teach our students to learn by heart, let's say, the question words. We use when to ask about time. We use where to ask about place, and so on. But at the end of the lesson, can your students use these words to ask about different topics from their real life? This is what we call behavioral topic. Here we want the student to master the skill, not to know about the skill, to master the skill. I mean, to practice it by himself. This is what you want.
Yes, actually, the behavioral objectives can be measured by asking, by evaluating. We have two kinds of evaluation, periodical, for every objective, and we have final evaluation.
Yes.
So if you say students will be able at the end of the lesson to, for example, if they are young learners, students will be able to count from 1 to 10. The evaluation is going to be count from 1 to 10. If the students can count, so we did the objective, it is done, students will be able to count from 1 to 10.
And let me stop here, please, again, Mr. Majid.
Please.
I'd like to talk about the objectives themselves. I mean, we should have, or we should put as teachers, objectives that can be measured
Yes,
or
of course.
evaluated. For example, when we say, I expect my students will know about so-and-so. Can we measure this skill?
No, we cannot.
Or this objective?
We cannot measure.
No.
No.
We
Measure
should say
means
use so-and-so.
Yes.
Not know.
Count, put
Exactly.
examples, put
Ask.
sentences, ask questions.
Answer.
Yes. Answer
Use.
questions. Yes. If we say students will be able to answer questions about the passage, in the evaluation field we put questions about the passage.
Yes, yes.
For example, they read the text. If it is reading text, we put questions about every passage for periodical evaluation. Then questions about the whole lesson as final evaluation.
Yes.
And students will be able to answer these questions. In the activity, we teach them how we are going to teach these students the way of
Okay,
this.
let's go on, please.
So we have warm up and we have lead in activity.
Yes.
Always we say before you get your students get indulged in the lesson, warm your students up.
Of course.
By asking questions, general questions. Then we have lead-in questions.
Good.
In the lead-in questions, they can be questions related to the new lesson or relating to the previous lesson so that you refresh their knowledge about the previous lesson.
Good, good. So we have to link. When the teacher starts his lesson, the first thing he does, or
To
he
bridge.
should do,
Yeah, to bridge.
or to link with
Yes.
the previous knowledge or their previous
Because we need to
experience,
build
previous
on
lessons.
something we started
Yes,
before.
yes, to build on.
Yes, to build on.
Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Majid. Well, Ms. Umayma, when we talk about developing a lesson plan, we have something called instructional component.
Yes.
What can you tell us about this?
Well, thank you. The instructional component describes sequence of events that make up the lesson. Sequence of events.
Good.
So including the teacher's instructional input
Good.
and where appropriate guided practice by students to consolidate new skills and ideas.
Good.
As we talked about, consolidating new things and relating them with the old information or knowledge that the students know.
Okay.
We have independent practice that allows students to extend skills or knowledge on their own. Then we have a summary where the teacher wraps up a discussion and answers questions. Well, then we have the evaluation. Evaluation component is like a test or mastery of the instructed skills or concepts, such as a set of questions to answer or a set of instructions to follow.
So here, can a teacher, let's say, develop his lesson plan without evaluation?
No,
Of course
no,
not.
of course not.
He should know at the end of his lesson whether the students have mastered the skills or not,
That's right.
or they have achieved, or he has achieved the goals or the purposes of the lesson.
And
Yes.
always writes notes about the strengths and weaknesses he encountered while giving the lesson.
I think, dear colleagues, after each skill, a teacher should do something called evaluation. We have periodical evaluation and
Yes.
final evaluation, which happens at the end of the lesson, of course, as a whole.
Yes.
But step by step, he should make sure, as a teacher, of course, whether his students have mastered the skills or not.
Yes.
So evaluation is very necessary.
Yes.
There are some teachers, let's say, who follow a strategy which is they prefer to do evaluation, let's say, at the end, maybe one activity, one exercise or two, and they ask the students to do the other activities or exercises from the activity book. They can choose from them to do these exercises at home.
Yes.
It's okay. It's a kind of of evaluation.
Yes.
But I prefer, I think you agree with me,
Yes.
that we should do periodical evaluation.
Yes.
I mean, after each step, each skill, I should know very well whether my students have mastered the skill. Why? Because I want to build on it later on.
Yes.
Yes.
I want to build on this skill. For example, when we talk about tenses, okay, they have mastered using tenses. Can I give them, for example, or talk about the passive voice in grammar without talking about tenses?
No?
No, we cannot, of course.
Of course not.
I cannot. I think I have to make sure as a teacher that they have a good idea about all tenses
Tenses,
in English,
yes, before we
all
move to-
active tenses, and why we use them. Then I can talk about passive voice. Why? Because they won't be able to, let's say, cooperate with me or to understand what I am talking about, because they have something missed
Building
before.
a wall, Mr. Webb, building a wall. You cannot build on something on air.
Yes, yes.
So you need to put something to
A
build
good
on.
expression. Thank you. Okay.
That's why we say planning is very important. When the teacher plans well, he know how to do all the skills and to acquire the goals that he wants. Timing is very important. The teacher puts in mind the time
Yes.
that in order to make the evaluation for each step he does in
Yes.
for the lesson or in the classroom. So timing is important.
I'd like to talk about something here, Miss Umayma. When we talk about lesson planning, we are not talking about a sheet of paper.
Yes.
We are not talking about papers here. We are talking about the processes in mind, in the mind of the teacher himself. I mean, we are trying to give an idea that the teacher should have something in his mind. I mean, he should be aware of each step during the lesson, what he is going to do next, and so on. He should have, as you said, a map. A map. Really, it's a map. for
Yes.
him.
Paper
It's a
just
map.
tips for himself so that he follows what he put in his mind.
Yes.
We say always we don't need a newspaper to be a lesson plan, just tips so that you know what you are going to do now, time.
Yes.
So you put this sheet of paper in front of you on the desk, and from time to time you glance at your watch and at this sheet of paper, but the whole lesson is planned in your mind, of course. But these tips helps you to refresh your memory and to go, like my colleague said, on a map.
Yes. Okay, Ms. Umayma, do you have something else?
Yes, another thing is the risk assessment, where the lesson risk, yes, and the steps taken to minimize them are documented.
So, when we talk about risk assessment, what do you mean by this, a risk assessment?
We mean that the risk that may face, as you said earlier, Mr. Basil, about when facing the teacher when he has a plan and he has some things which are not supposed to be, or so he will be able to manage the things accurately in the classroom. This
I
is
agree with you.
that's
Yes,
it, and and the steps to be taken. He
Yes.
would be aware of them. Even a very specialized and professional teacher, he knows how to take care of the risks which happen in the classroom or during the lesson itself.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Well, dear colleagues, now we have talked about the meaning, or we have given I think, a good definition of a lesson plan, and we have answered the first question: why lesson planning? Right? Now, any lesson plan, of course, should contain some, let's say, basic elements. Without these elements, we don't call it a lesson plan.
Yes.
Let's say that. What are the elements? Of course, we are going to answer this question. What are the main elements of any lesson plan for any teacher, not only for English teachers?
Yes,
We are
yes.
talking here about lesson plan in general.
Yes.
But of course, we are trying to direct, let's say, our speech to English teachers, but of course, other teachers can take the benefit from our speech, because we are talking about lesson plan in general. So, they need to translate, of course, into Arabic
Yes.
or to understand us.
We are
I'm
ready.
sure they can. Most of them can understand us because we are using simple words. We are not complicating, let's say, the
Yes.
point. Okay, so the elements of a lesson plan, Mr. Majid. The first element, as you said before, I think it's warming up, warm up. What is warm up? What can teachers do in this step or in this stage, let's say that? Would you please give us a good idea about warm up, please?
Thank you. Well, we always advise the teachers not to start a lesson before they warm the students up. Warming up means to prepare them to receive the new lesson by asking general questions and by asking lead-in questions relating to the lesson you are going to teach so that you arouse the curiosity in your pupils to receive the new information.
Good.
So you make them appeal to their senses. This prepares the child's mind to receive the new knowledge. The teacher needs to know where his pupils are and what they need so that, and this is going to be planned in his lesson, of course. We have two essential things for warming up. First is to ask general questions.
Good.
To prepare them to receive. Then we have questions about the previous lesson to make sure that they remember what you have given them before. So it can be 2 or 3 general questions at the beginning. Then showing them pictures, for example, to prepare them for the new lesson. Then
So I can start my lesson by showing my students a picture.
yes.
And talk about it. It will be as an introduction
Lead-in
to our
lead-in
lesson.
activity to the lesson.
Yes, why not? A chart, maybe. A model. What do we mean by a model, Mr. Majid?
Actually, you can use a picture. You can use. You can ask somebody to say something from your students about something happened to him. If it is about an accident you're going to talk about, so you give them something related to the new lesson so that they understand it when you get them.
Maybe a
endorsed.
model, I can choose someone from the students
Yes.
and talk with him about something. I can ask him some questions, and my questions will be, as you said,
About the lesson.
about the lesson. So it could be considered an introduction to my lesson. I can vary my strategies and my methods.
Yes.
You are the teacher, and you are the only person who can decide which way is suitable for your students.
Yes.
Yes.
After modeling, you say, well, now we are going to start our lesson by this.
Yes.
You use the same thing you started
Good.
with.
What else?
Actually, when you prepare your students after you warming them up,
Yes.
and after modeling or showing a picture, talking about the picture, you now have your pupils ready to start the lesson. So you start saying, this is our lesson. Our lesson is going to be about this issue, and you start the lesson with it.
Good. Of course, here maybe this strategy can be used with adults, maybe.
With all levels.
It will be more suitable, I think, with adults. I mean, secondary grades and some classes in the elementary, right, stage.
Yes.
I think with young learners, maybe for grade 1 and grade 2, when
You
I
can
say
bring a picture
our
of a
lesson
bird.
is about
Picture of a
but they
bird.
maybe
Talk about birds in general.
won't be able to understand me if I say our student for today will be about so and so.
Well, let me say something, Mr. Basil. I always advise the teachers. For young learners, maybe the teacher says the whole lesson is about just 4 or 5 animals. I need to teach them the names of these things.
Good.
Why should I speak English for 45 minutes, although my lesson is only about 5 words?
Yes.
Well, we are building English inside these
Exactly.
pupils.
Exactly.
When you speak for 45 minutes, and let's assume that they are not going to understand everything you said, but in the end, they will be able to give, students will be able to give the names of the animals in the pictures,
Of course.
but they received English in their
A
minds.
lot of words,
Their
many words.
ears received English. When you continue this every time, they will absorb like a sponge.
Yes.
Exactly.
Absorb English, and they will learn English. So in the end, they will have this common sense of English. They can use English away from grammar. This is
Exactly.
we always
You
explain.
talked about continuity, Mr. Majid,
Yes.
and
Persistence.
I'd like to, let's say, direct my speech now for parents at home. I mean, we need their help. Young learners need continuity. What we build in the classroom, we need others to continue with us, to help us, right, in our job. So they need to train their kids at home to practice English as they can, because I think 2 classes per week are
This is
not
for grade
enough,
one.
Yes.
For
are
grade
not
one, yes.
enough for the kids to practice English very well, or let's say to acquire the language. We need continuity, as you said. Continuity not only in the classroom, but also
Outside.
at home.
And an appeal not to ask the teacher to translate. Usually parents are used to get the lesson with translation in Arabic. So when a teacher keeps speaking English inside the classroom, most of parents complain about this. They say, why? We need translation so that our children understand. No, we appeal to them that not to ask for translation. We need to help these young learners to get the language thinking in English,
Good.
away from Arabic, or else, as we mentioned before,
A
it
good
will take
teacher
double
is a
time.
motivator, Mr. Majid.
yes.
And if he is a motivator, he should, let's say, give his students many projects to be done at home. So, okay, we talked about parents and the help of parents at home, but an English teacher, a teacher, a good teacher, if he is a motivator, he can make his students practice English at home by giving them some activities, interesting activities to be done at home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So this is what we call continuity. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Majid. Do you have something else?
No, we move to presentation
Okay.
now if you want me to do
I
that.
think after warming up, I think we have explained everything about warm-up, the first step of the lesson. Now, Ms. Umayma, after warming up,
Yes.
of course, here the teacher should present
Yes. He goes
his
into the lesson.
He
after
goes
the
into
word.
the lesson. What
Yes.
can you tell us about presentation,
Yes,
please?
for presentation, after a short period of warming up, the actual lesson commences here. So this step should involve a good deal of activity on part of the students. The teacher will take the 8 various devices: example, questions, illustrations, explanation, exposition, demonstration, sensory aids, etc. It's up to the teacher himself, as we said, professional teacher, or the teacher should verify his aids in order to present his lesson well. Then, because the information and knowledge can be given, explained, revealed, or suggested in
Good.
this.
Good.
So he starts here. The following, we have the principles. We have principles should be kept in mind while presenting the lesson.
Good.
There are several principles.
What are these principles?
Yes. Let's start with the principle of selection and division. This division, this principle, when we select and divide, this subject matter should be divided into different sections, the subject matter of the lesson.
Yes.
The teacher should also decide as to how much he is to tell and how much the pupils are to find out for themselves.
Good.
He should know where to speak and to be the central
and,
role.
and when to stop
And
to
when
make
to
his
stop.
students speak.
Speak to make
Yes.
them the central role,
Yes.
the role of the
Good.
period of teaching
Good.
the lesson.
Good.
Another principle of successive sequence. It means that the teacher should ensure that the succeeding as well as preceding knowledge is clear to the students. It means that he always relates to the old or the previous knowledge that they took or they know about in previous lessons.
Good.
and relate them to the new one.
So to create sequence, he should know very well that his students know or they have the previous knowledge very well, and they are able now to receive a new knowledge. This is what you mean.
Yes, that's what I mean. And to move on to the next step.
Good,
That's
okay.
it. Another principle of observing and integration. In the end, after the division,
Absorption, you mean?
Yes.
And integration, okay.
well, in the end or after the division, in the end of separation of the parts must be followed by their combination to promote understanding of the whole.
Good. Thank
Yes.
you very much. So let's try to repeat them again. We have, as you said, three principles.
Yes.
Principle of selection and division.
Yes.
Here, division is very important. Of roles, of
Of
course.
roles.
Then we have principle of successive sequence, the previous knowledge with the
With the
new
new
knowledge,
knowledge.
a link. There must be a link
Yes.
between them. And the last one, absorption and integration.
Yes.
Here, in the end, separation of the parts must be followed by their combination to promote understanding the whole.
Yes, and
Thank you.
everything should be made clearly,
Good,
clearly without
good,
no
good.
complex
Thank
sentences.
you very much, Sue. This is everything about presentation. Of course, the teacher here is free
Yes.
to introduce his topic or to present, I mean, or to use, let's say, the procedures, different procedures, whatever he likes, let's say that. He can vary his activities, he can vary his strategies, his methods,
Yes.
according to the level, of course, of his students.
Yes.
He knows very well what motivates them, what, let's say, makes them or makes the lesson more interesting according to the level of his students. So the response of the students is very necessary also. And he knows very well what makes them
Interested.
respond
Yeah.
well to
Yes.
his, let's say, activities or exercises or procedures in general. Thank you very much. Mr. Majid, during the presentation of the lesson, we have something called association. What is association? What do you mean by this term?
Yeah,
Please.
thank you very much. Well, actually, when you are teaching abstract knowledge, it is a bit difficult for pupils or students to understand. So it is preferred, it's a good idea to make comparisons with these concepts to daily life situations. Always give examples to compare what you are teaching with what is happening in real life so that these students can compare between the concept and between the example. Another way, not only to compare, to contrast. You can give them contrasting,
Yes.
because by comparing and contrasting, they can generalize. We move to something called generalization.
Good.
And we always need to make the students get the knowledge themselves,
Yes.
to think in their own way, to get the knowledge in their own way, to get their own experience, not to compel them to understand something we want. So we need to know how these children, how these young learners think, to give them examples from their own life,
Good.
make them compare their knowledge with something they know, contrasting or comparing. In the end, they are going to get their own experience and they are going to get the new knowledge in their own way of thinking.
Thank you. So you talked about association, comparison, you talked about generalization.
contrasting, and generalization.
So
in the
here-
end, contrasting and comparing are going to-
Comparison and contrast lead to
generalization.
generalization.
Yes.
So it's an effort should be made to ensure that students draw the conclusions themselves.
Yes.
It should
yes,
result in students' own thinking, reflection, and
yes.
experience.
Experience, yes.
Good. Very nice. Well, now, Miss Umayma, Mr. Majid talked about association, he
Yes.
talked about generalization. What can we talk about application? What do you mean by application here?
Well, application means to be able to think, to apply the principles. We spoke about principles using the language or
We were
teaching.
talking about knowledge.
Yes,
Knowledge objectives. Now, maybe
Yes.
you're talking about behavioral
yes, that's it.
objectives.
So
Yes.
it requires a good deal of mental activity to think and apply the principles learned
To new
situations. That's it. Knowledge, when it's put in use, to use and verified, becomes clear.
Good.
And the part of students' mental makeup. That's it
Good.
for application, is to
Yes.
apply, to think, to apply the principles, to learn new things.
Okay. What about recapitulation? What do you
Yes.
mean by this?
The
I
last,
think
it's
the
the
last
last step of lesson plan. The teacher tries to ascertain whether the students have understood or grasped the subject matter or not. This is used for assessing.
So we are talking here about
evaluating.
evaluation.
We talked about evaluation,
Yes.
which is the last step in planning the lesson. The effectiveness of lesson by asking students questions on the content of the lesson, or by giving short objectives to test the students' level of understanding.
Good.
Well, so the teacher, we say that it's up to the teacher. And when we speak about principles or the lesson plan, we know that we are speaking about the headlines. The teacher is free, according to his students,
Yes.
to the lesson and to different abilities and environment, and according to different needs
Yes.
for the
Yes.
students
Yes.
themselves. But these steps are very important. Evaluation and this
So it's the
very related
teacher's
to the lesson
job
itself.
to
It's the-
ensure that the goals have been achieved.
Yes.
Yes.
It's his job,
his job.
his role,
He knows what to do in the classroom.
and he should do evaluation at the end.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Well, Mr. Majid, now Ms. Umayma talked about evaluation. Let's now talk about how can we develop a lesson plan. Maybe the features of a well-developed lesson plan. What are the features of a well-developed lesson plan, please?
Thank you. Well, actually, this lesson plan reflects the philosophy of the teacher about education. Every teacher needs to know the needs and interests of his students, and using this to reflect his philosophy about education, to reach their needs and their interests so that he can teach what he wants to teach them through this way.
Yes.
So this reflects his philosophy about teaching. A good teacher needs to know his students' needs and interests and his own philosophy about education to convey the message of education.
So, Mr. Majid, when you said the lesson plan should reflect the teacher's philosophy about or of education, of course, this sentence answers the question about the following. We don't have a fixed plan or a fixed lesson plan.
Of course.
Any teacher has his own plan.
Yes.
But here we are trying to focus on the main elements, let's say that, in any lesson plan.
We have
But he is free to design his
a lot
plan
of formats.
as he can. Yes, please.
But the teacher needs to know how much time he has for his plan and what he is going to teach in this time available,
Exactly.
and how can he convey
Yes.
the method he is going to teach, how can he make a bridge between him and between his students by knowing their needs and interests and by giving them comparisons,
Yes.
asking them to contrast. In the end, we have, as we mentioned, some elements. We need to know how much time we have. We need to know the objectives the behavioral objectives we are going to teach, how many objectives we have, and we need to give time, to allot time for every objective. We need to know what we are going to use, technologies, computers, pictures,
Good,
flashcards, what we are going to use, show them in
Good.
the classroom so
Yes.
that they understand. And we need to evaluate, to give evaluation for every objective so that we make sure that we understood the first objective and we can move to the next objective.
Yes.
So we need to put in mind the outlines, the warming up, after that the objectives we are going to teach, how
Yes.
in the presentation to
Good.
make the needs reach our philosophy in teaching, and to evaluate every objective. And in the end, we have general final evaluation.
Exactly. So let's say that to develop any lesson plan, we should have something in our mind. I mean, I should have a philosophy of education as a teacher.
Yes.
I should have my own, let's say, look, right, on the subject as a whole. I should have a map in my mind.
And this can
Now,
be changed by the passage of
course.
time, because
Now
if you
I
find
can
this
put
is not okay,
the
you can change.
procedures.
Yeah.
How can I apply this in the classroom with my students? So I should be aware as a teacher of each step, right? So, and this leads, of course, to the next step, which is a lesson plan should be a broad thematic lesson
Yes,
plan, Mr.
yes,
Majid,
yes.
because it allows the teacher to create various research, writing, speaking,
Give
reading
assignments, yeah,
assignments.
give
of course.
assignments.
Yes. So
Reading,
if
writing
the lesson
assignments.
plan doesn't lead to this, it's not called a lesson plan,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Now, Miss Umayma, we have a lesson plan. All teachers should know very well what, as we said, he is doing in the classroom.
Yes.
We said that though there are no strict forms of lesson planning, we need to focus on some main principles. The first principle, Ms. Umayma, when the teacher wants to put a lesson plan, of course, he will focus on the objectives.
Yes.
The first thing,
Of course.
he should know the objectives of the lesson.
Yes.
What he's
How
going to teach.
to set the objectives. Now,
Yes.
how can I, as a teacher, set, let's say, the objectives of the lesson? Please.
Well, for the teacher to set the objective of the lesson, which
Yes.
is the first thing a teacher does, is to create an objective. As you said, it's a statement of purpose of the whole lesson. An objective statement itself should answer what students will be able to do by the end of the lesson. We spoke about the goal and the objective, which is the first thing, the most important for the lesson. For setting objectives, we say that each objective must begin with a verb.
As we said,
As we
use,
said previously. Yes.
answer,
Ra-
ask,
yes.
define,
Yes.
etc.
Yes. It should start with the verb. States because it states the action to be taken to show accomplishment.
Yes.
The most important word to use is in an assignment is a verb, because verbs state how to demonstrate if accomplishment has taken place or not.
Good.
When
Good.
I say ask, answer, write, describe, do this, do this, do this, we use the verb in order
Yes,
to be
yes,
sure
yes.
it demonstrates the
And it
accomplishment.
can be measured.
It can be measured
yes.
clearly.
Yes.
Another thing for the objective is care. Care is taken with creating the objective for every day's lesson, for every day.
Why?
Yes, as it will determine the activities the students engage in. Each lesson has
Because
an
when
activity.
we put the objective, this objective will determine,
Yeah, determines.
let's say, the type of activities that can be done during the lesson,
Yes,
right?
that's it.
So
That's it.
when
It's
I have
create.
an objective, this objective leads to activities that should be done in the classroom.
In the classroom.
Good.
Yes, and the teacher also ensures that lesson plan goals are compatible with the development level of the students. Development level should be taken in mind.
Good.
And some teachers, I'd like to add, when using a lesson plan for this year, for example,
Yes.
for this lesson, for example, they still use it for the next year, the other year, as it's a model for them. No, the teacher knows that every time he may change, he may create, he may add something, he may learn from the students themselves in the classroom, who may give us ideas, give us things, gleans
Good.
to new way related to the lesson itself.
Yes.
Which
yes.
enrich
Thank
the
you.
object.
Thank you for this addition.
Yes.
Well, now, Mr. Majid,
Yeah.
Ms. Umayma talked about objectives and how to, let's say, set objectives as teachers. Of course, here, when we talk about English, of course, we have the teacher's guide, and in the student's book itself, I think at the beginning of each lesson, the objectives are
put.
very clear, are put at the beginning, and they are very clear. But of course, the teacher can add maybe
Yes.
some
Yes.
more objectives
According to the needs of his
according to the
students.
needs of his
Because
students,
in the
according
book,
to the level
they
of
are
his students.
generalizing.
So don't depend only on the objectives written at
This
the
is what
beginning
we
of the
meant
lesson. You
about
can add more.
Add
Teacher's philosophy of education.
When we talked about philosophy of education, this is what we mean. Thank you, Mr. Majid. Now, when we want to, let's say, apply some strategies or methods of teaching in the classroom as teachers, we should use, of course, materials. Now, what can you tell us about the suitable materials that can be chosen during the lesson or for doing the lesson or for teaching the students, please?
Thank you. Well, the first thing, the teacher has the book and the board.
Yes.
He can draw pictures, he can use the board to explain what he wants to teach. And nowadays we have new technology. We have projectors, we have the computer, we have television. The projector, the teacher can prepare a PowerPoint program for his students. He can use the projector with the computer. He can put this program on the computer and show the students this through the projector and can explain. He can make them feel vivid, not to feel bored. He can use television, he can use audio scripts, he can use CD player, make them listen, so he needs to create a good atmosphere for his students so that they didn't get bored.
Very good point, Mr. Majid. Now, let's say that I am a teacher now in a village which is so far from the city, so far from technology. Let's say that the students, my students, are living or live in a village. They, let's say, don't use a lot of technology. They don't know maybe how to use computers. They don't know about projectors. Maybe some of them don't have televisions at home.
Yes.
So, in this case, the teacher, I think, should, and this is why we are talking about materials, Mr. Majid, and choosing the suitable materials for your students, according to their level and according to their interest and according to their maybe knowledge, according to their abilities maybe, sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So some students don't know how to use computers. So when you use a computer in the classroom, maybe some of them won't respond, maybe, or they won't be motivated sometimes. Of course, young learners know everything new, and they will be motivated when they see a computer in the classroom. Oh my God, a computer, oh, a television, oh, a video. So I think you have talked about a very important thing, which is technology. Now we are living, let's say, at a time we use technology every day, every second. So make use of technology as a teacher. Please, we want you to use technology because your students are using technology at home, in the street, they use it everywhere. Why don't you use technology? Okay, you say, I have no electricity. There is no electricity in my school.
Comes
But
two
it's
hours.
okay, you can use your mobile phone.
You can charge your mobile
You
phone.
can use your laptop. You can
Yes.
use some videos. You can bring your laptop and, let's say, show them some videos in the laptop. They will be motivated,
This
believe
is
me.
vital, yes.
Yes. So, I'd like to thank you because you have talked about something which is very important, Mr. Majid. Before we go on, dear colleagues, let me remind my colleagues at homes that they can participate with us in this seminar. Please, if you have some questions about lesson plan, don't be hesitated. You can call us by using the phone number shown at the bottom of the screen. But for the time being, I think it's time for the break. So, dear colleagues, let's have a break for some seconds and then we can come back. Thank you. Hello again, dear colleagues. Welcome back to our seminar. We were talking, as you know, about lesson plan. Mr. Majid, before the break, was talking about technology. So, the stage is yours, Mr. Majid. You were talking about
Thank you.
technology.
As we said, we use the technology to attract these students to get what we are going to teach them, to absorb the information. And we need to keep in mind that we need to give assignment. The teacher needs to know which assignment to give, either whole class assignment or workshops or for small groups of 3 or 2 or peer learning. Peer learning, we mean by peer learning to ask two students to correct each other's assignment, to help each other understand the passage. When we say work in pairs and group, to participate with each other, discussing something with each other, and then to give the information they have understood together. Small groups, for example, students work on the assignment in groups of 3 or 4. So we choose 3 or 4 students to work together to do one assignment we are going to give them.
So we talked about this before, Mr. Majid, when Ms. Wima talked about dividing the job during the lesson. She said sometimes the teacher, the teacher knows or should know when he speaks and when he stops, what he does and what the students do. So this is the division of work. Now you are talking about dividing.
If I give a comparison here, we have a long text in the classroom, which maybe takes a long time to explain. We divide the classroom into groups, and we give part of that text to every group, not the same part. Every group takes some of the text, take parts.
Yes.
Every group reads their own assignment, their own part, and the teacher gives questions to evaluate their understanding. Every group answer their own questions. In the end, the teacher can conclude the whole text in a shorter time.
Yes.
This is what we want by dividing the job into the groups. We have whole class assignment to ask the whole class to do homework, for example.
When the teacher lectures as a whole.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
what about workshops?
Workshops, we divide students into groups to give workshops. Students perform various tasks simultaneously. In the workshop, students do various tasks. The workshop activities must be tailored to the lesson plan. So we need to make it go like we planned. Give them kind of tasks in the workshop to do what we planned. So
which
that
serves,
the
let's say,
lesson plan,
the lesson plan.
It must be tailored to the lesson plan.
Yes.
We have independent work. Students complete assignments individually. Every student does kind of homework by himself. We have peer learning. Students work together face to face. We can make conversation with each other so they can learn from one another. So we can ask them, for example, if we took kind of conversation in the lesson, we say, who can make conversation with his friend to ask questions from the lesson itself or from the previous lessons, general questions, so that they learn from each other. One asks, another answers, then the one who answered asks a question, the other answers, they learn from each other. This is called peer learning.
Yes.
We have contractual work. The teacher and student establish an agreement that a student must perform a certain amount of work by deadline. So I said you have 2 minutes to finish finding, for example, information in the text if it is reading.
Yes.
After 2 minutes, it is the deadline. I will ask you and I need you to answer. So you give deadline, and students are going to be strict.
A good strategy.
Yes.
Yes. I think. Thank you very much. Now,
types of assignment. These assignments categorize, example, peer learning, independent, small group.
Yes.
And also be used to guide the instructor's choice of assignment measures that can provide information about student and the class comprehension of the material.
Good.
So in the end, these assignments need to give us certainty that they had understood the lesson we had given to them.
So the benefit of assignments is not only for the students, but also for the teacher
Feedback
himself.
for the teacher,
It's
yes,
a type
feedback.
or kind of feedback for the teacher himself.
Yes.
Why? It's evaluation. When we talk about evaluation, this is evaluation.
Yes.
To evaluate each step.
And as we mentioned, always the teacher needs to write the weaknesses and strengths of his job so that he knows in the future to enrich his philosophy of education,
Yes.
and to know how he can convey the lesson to the students.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Majid. Now, Miss Umayma, when, as a teacher, when I want to plan for my lesson, of course, I should have a lot of questions in my mind, and I should have answers to all these questions, right? Can you tell us about some questions and the answers of these questions? I mean, I am an English teacher. Before planning my lesson, I have some questions. Like what? I should have some questions about my students, about my job maybe, about the objectives, about the atmosphere, about the classroom itself, about the level of my students, etc., about the materials. Many questions indeed. So what are these questions, and what can you tell us about them, and how can we answer these questions, please?
Okay, thank you. Speaking about questions, traditionally speaking, that there are many questions related to the lesson, to the classroom, to the students, to the plan itself. There are important questions to be talked about. There are additional questions an instructor, the teacher, can consider when choosing which
So
type.
here not only for lesson planning, but also for assignments.
Yes.
Yes.
For assignments, for
For
lesson
doing
planning.
assignments, yes.
Yes, I'd like to say it, that which type of assignment would provide the most benefit to students. He knows when he did something before, then he knows which type to do it
He can
for
decide.
benefit
He
for
can
the
decide
students.
which type
Yes.
is useful or will be useful to his students.
Will be useful to his students. So this includes the following. We have what level of learning do the students need to attain before choosing assignments with varying difficulty levels? This is the first question.
Let's stop here, Mr.
Yes.
Majid. Miss Umayma, what level of learning do the students need to attain
Yes.
before choosing assignments with varying difficulty levels? Let's explain in more details here. What level of learning do the students need?
Of course, if we are teaching young learners the names of animals, we're not going, as you said, to ask them questions which are abstract questions.
Exactly.
For example, where do you think a bird usually puts his worm, for example, or his nest?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not this target. So we need for young learners, for example, as we mentioned before, we have pre-reading, a preschool. In the preschool, we have just to give names of things. We don't teach them writing or reading, just the names of things. Then we have decoding for reading for grades 1 and 2. Then we have reading for comprehension, or reading to ask questions or to answer questions.
Yes.
So, and of course, if we are teaching adults, we don't ask them what is this animal for a dog, for example.
Yes,
So
of course.
we need to know their level, and we need to know their abilities, so that they can understand what we want, and we give them the information gradually. And always compare with real life. Compare what you are going to teach with what they know or they see in real life, or contrast it with real life so
Yes.
that they get it. So we need to put in mind the level of my students, and to think about questions to ask them to answer, and again to think about questions maybe aroused by the students themselves,
Okay.
so that I can answer to them.
Okay, let me ask another question, Ms. Umayma. I want to decide which type of learning is good for my students. Before doing this, I think, how can I do this? Don't you consider the diagnostic test from the very beginning is important to let's say to determine the type of learning I should follow with my students?
It can be, yes.
Yes,
The
of course,
diagnostic
definitely.
test, I think, is very important. For example, we are now in the first day at school. I have no idea about the level of my students as a teacher. I have nothing about them. So how can I know? And they are, for example, they are in grade 4, for example. Let's say grade 4, grade 5, etc.
Any
Grade
grade.
4.
Any
Okay.
grade, okay.
Any grade. Grade 4. Now, I should know as a teacher the skills my students have mastered before they reach grade 4.
And not only
Right.
that, you need to know the weak ones and the strong ones.
The weaknesses, I
And
should
how you
know
can
the
use-
weaknesses.
How you can use the good ones, the strong ones, to help you
Exactly.
teaching the weak ones.
Exactly. So I should know their abilities, what they can do, what they know, and what they can do in English,
In English.
and what they can't do. So if I do this,
And while planning, to consider these individual differences.
exactly, so I can change my plan according to the
The
level
students, yeah.
of the students.
Yes.
Right? This is what I want to know, or what I want to focus on. That's it. So what level of learning do the students need
Yes.
is very, very important.
important.
What next, Ms. Umayma,
The next,
please? The
which
next
is
question.
another important question, is the time.
Time,
Time
yes.
related to doing everything.
So I want to teach them so and so, any skill.
Any skill.
This skill, of course, needs doing some activities.
Yes.
Needs doing some procedures. These procedures need time to be done.
Yes.
So I should know the time.
The amount of time.
Yes.
How much time and
Needed,
effort.
yes.
How much time needed for doing a specific thing,
Yes.
and how much effort needed also.
Exactly.
Not only time, it's also effort. Does the instructor have
Good,
to provide
good.
student grading and feedback?
Yes.
According to time, to level, it's the effort which is done by the instructor himself. He knows what kind. Sometimes he has to do a lot of effort.
So
Sometimes
let's say that I
students
have an
help.
assignment, and this assignment consists of, for example, 15 questions. It's like a quiz. Let's
Yes.
say that. And this assignment shows me, or let's say gives me, a good idea about 2 skills. Let's say that. So I can do the student, let's say the normal one, the normal person, let's say
The average.
we are talking about performance here, Ms. Umayma, performance of the student himself. So any student, any normal one person can do this job, let's say in 10 minutes. So 10 minutes are enough. I don't put 30 minutes for something which needs 10 minutes. Why? Because I don't think if I give this assignment 30 minutes and it needs 10 minutes, it won't be useful at the end.
no, not successful.
Not
Yes.
successful. So don't give your students extra time if the assignment needs 10 minutes only, for the normal person, I mean. For the normal person. We are talking about people in general. I know we have differences when we talk
Individual
about,
differences, yes.
let's say, cleverness, something like this. I know that there are differences between individuals in the classroom.
Yes.
Right, this is right.
That's right.
But I can do this job in 10 minutes, so 10 minutes are enough. Don't give them more time. Because if you give them more time for doing the assignment, it
So while
won't be
planning,
useful.
he needs to keep in mind this, to give the exact time needed for the average student to achieve. Sometimes he may finish in a shorter time. He can use the rest of the time, the minutes he has, in evaluating or final evaluation
Yes.
to make sure that they have understood.
Good. Of course, here we are talking about, let's say, written assignments or assignments when they are done maybe
On paper?
in the classroom when they write. But when we talk about something different, I mean something behavioral, let's say that, okay, each group can do the job. Let them do the job. But tell them from the very beginning that
Deadline.
a deadline, as you said, there is a deadline. There must be a deadline. In 10 minutes you have to do so and so. Okay, the first group has done the job, the second group has done the job in 11 minutes, and etc. So I said, group 1 is the winner, group 2, thank you for trying, but next time...
Competition, kind of competition.
Exactly, it's a kind of competition. Next time, try to do the job in the specific time, and so on. Don't make them or don't stop them from doing the job. It's okay, right?
That's right.
This is what I mean.
Yes.
Okay, Miss
Well,
Umayma.
another question is what's the purpose of the assignment? Another important question, the
Yes.
purpose. Example, to track student learning, to provide students with time to practice concepts,
Good.
or to practice incidental skills such as group process or independent research. This is important according to what I said and what we said related to these questions.
Yes.
Well, another important question is how does the assignment fit with the rest of the lesson plan? Does the assignment test content knowledge, or does it require application in a new context?
Good.
Another question, does the lesson plan fit particular framework?
Good.
Well, these are the questions relating to
And I think we have given answers
Yes.
to all
Yes,
these
and
questions.
to
right?
everything.
Yes. Thank you.
These questions must be put in the mind of the teacher before he plans. He needs to think about all these questions while he is planning, or else he will be in a chaotic situation in
Yes.
the classroom. He will not be able to teach well. Some teachers say that we taught this before and we are able to give any lesson without planning. We say this is not exactly right, because sometimes you give a lesson in a class, when you move to another class you find something new
Yes.
to teach the new class. So when you prepare every time, always you are improving your skills of planning, of teaching, everything. So don't say I know, always plan and always improve your way in planning.
Yes. Yes. I agree with you. Now, Mr. Majid,
Yes.
some teachers say, I don't think lesson planning is important. Why should I do a lesson plan? I have everything in my mind, and I have an experience of, let's say, 20 years in teaching, so I don't care about planning. I have everything here in my mind. Don't you think, is it a good strategy?
No, of course not. As Ms. Umayma mentioned, we need to put in mind things about the lesson. We need to know what are the procedures we're going to give. We need to set time for every procedure, for every objective. So when I put the plan, I put the time, I put the objective. I know what I'm going, and this is why we always say, put the tips on a sheet of paper in front of you. If it is a notebook, a plan book, it's okay, but make it to be in one frame.
Yes.
So that you, while you are teaching, you glance, you know this is the first behavioral objective, this is the second, this is the third. Am I right? Am I using time efficiently? And nowadays we have, as we mentioned before, discussion sheet for the teachers. So the teachers needs to allot time effectively, not to give more time to something that needed a little time, or to give something quickly before the students get understood.
Yes, I know.
So when you plan, you know the steps. The teacher knows the steps of his lesson, and he moves smoothly on these steps.
Yes. Now, here is my question, or my next question, Mr. Majid. In general, what are the advantages of lesson plan?
Well, lesson planning enables the teacher to use technique. Is this suitable for this objective?
for the level of
And
Yes.
while planning, you think about all these things. And in the end, the planning means to fulfill your objectives. If your objectives are fulfilled, so you did well in your lesson.
Yes.
Without planning, it will be done randomly. You may say it can happen without planning, but not always.
Yes.
Maybe sometimes, but we need to be planned. For example, imagine you are building a house. While you are building the house, you think that, what if the bathroom is suitable here or there? While planning or after you started building, it's useless to change the place of the things. So you plan first, you
Yes.
think about the sun while you are building, and as we said, building is the same like teaching.
Thank you very much.
Before
Mr.
you build the
Yes.
wall, you need to think about the stones, the suitable stone you are going to put. Planning helps you to achieve this.
Exactly.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree with you. Well, Miss Umayma, of course, we have other advantages. What can you add in this field?
Relating to the teacher himself, to the classroom, to the lesson, planning is really a necessity.
I can add
for-
something here before you talk about the model lesson plan, and this is something practical, I think. We have chosen something practical to give our English teachers a model, a sample about a lesson plan, how to design, let's say, a lesson plan. Of course, they are free to choose any model they like, but we have chosen this sample because it contains, as we said, the main elements of the lesson plan. But before going to talk about this, I'd like to add something about the lesson plan itself, Mr. Majid. I am the teacher, I have a lesson plan. Now, after giving the lesson, I can evaluate, as you said, self-evaluation.
Yes.
I can, let's say, determine, let's say, the disadvantages and the advantages of my own plan. And I can change in the next time, for the next time or for the next lesson, I can change the strategy I follow
Yes, of
when
course.
I design my lesson plan. When I put my lesson plan, I know that maybe there are some disadvantages, maybe the level of my students, because of the level of some of my students, let's say, does not help me to, let's say, achieve everything in my plan. So I can choose what is suitable for my students and what is not suitable to be deleted and changed or modified, right?
There is a saying which goes, the best way to learn is to teach.
Yes.
So while teaching, the teacher himself learns new strategies, new technologies,
Exactly.
new ways, new
He
techniques.
decides. He decides. Okay, Miss Umayma. Now, would you please give us a model lesson plan? Let's say a sample.
Yes.
Of course, it's not fixed. We talked
Yes.
about this before. We don't have fixed, let's say,
Rules.
formats of lesson planning.
Yes.
The teacher is free to design his lesson plan, but it should contain, any lesson plan should contain some elements.
Yes.
Please.
As we said, it should contain some important elements and principles relating
Yes.
to any lesson plan.
Okay.
Well, as a modular sample, we speak about, first of all, the objectives.
Thank you.
The main
Okay.
objectives of the lesson. For example, ask and answer questions about hobbies. Well, then we know, the second thing is to know at the end of the lesson, the student will be able to do skills,
The skills
or
here.
sub-skills.
Measurement.
Something
The
behavioral
measurement.
now.
Yes.
Yes.
So the first thing I ask and answer questions about hobbies.
Yes.
Okay, these the main objectives.
main
Now at the
objectives.
end of the lesson, I expect my students to be able to do so
To
and so.
do so and so for
For
the skills
example,
and the sub-skills,
yes.
okay? For example, use different question words correctly.
To use when, where, how many, how much correctly.
Yes.
So here he has to use these words
Correctly.
in complete structures,
In a
questions,
complete- yes.
how to ask others.
Yes.
Yes.
They use grammar in this stage. They use I know the objective of this, focusing on
Yes,
grammar,
yes.
speaking, asking and answering, communicating.
Good.
We know. Then we have the lesson steps. Speaking about them, we start, as we said,
Presentation now.
the presentation. Before presentation, we have the warm up.
Of course.
Okay, which is about from
And here,
5
should
minutes to
I?
7 minutes.
Is it necessary to let's say specify or determine the time of this step?
It's better, yes.
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 Not to take too
So,
much time.
Warm up, I should have no more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes are
It's
enough,
okay,
I
yeah.
think, for warming
It's
up.
enough.
It's enough.
It's enough, no more.
Yes, no more.
Yes.
Sometimes we need for about 7 or 8 hours from my visits
For,
to some
for
teachers.
lead-in
they need it.
activities.
Yes,
For
yes.
Relate
lead-in.
Maybe,
when
maybe.
they need it, right.
But 5,
5 is
I think
okay,
is
yes,
okay.
for
Yes.
them. Then we have the procedures, the presentation.
The body
Then
of the
we-
lesson
The body
now,
of the
the
lesson.
presentation.
Presenting, yes,
Yes.
the lesson itself, which we bear in mind the time from about 20,
From 20 to 25.
25 minutes. That's
Good,
it.
good.
Then we have presentation of the topic. The
Good.
topic. We speak about activities. Should mention activities, techniques, and the strategies followed. I say timing. Timing is always important in
Yes.
all the stages.
Yes.
The tools which are used, audio, visual,
Good.
real things, everything. We
Yes.
said we always insist on focusing. The teacher himself is free to verify the tools,
Yes.
the
Yes.
activities he used to help his students learn. Then we have the evaluation
At the end of the lesson.
at the end of the lesson, which is about 10 minutes.
No more than 10 minutes. 10
No
minutes
more
are
than-
enough.
Yes, it's enough
Yes.
for them. Then we have homework. After evaluation, we have
Mm-hmm.
sometimes homework asking them or exercise from the activity book and extra activities such as projects to encourage self-learning.
Of course, we think that homework is necessary.
Yes, it's
Some
necessary.
teachers say that homework is not always necessary. I can do the activities in the classroom. But we advise him
Yes.
to do extra job at home. I mean, the student can do extra job at home. Why not? It's an individual work, a type or a kind of an individual work. The student can work separately at home, right? And he can or he should depend on himself
Yes.
to do the activity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's a type of evaluation.
It's a type, yes.
Why not? Of course, we are going to talk
Individualistic
about homework, dear colleagues. In our next seminar, when we talk about classroom
Classroom
management, we are going to talk about homework and the advantages of homework. But for the time being, homework is the last step in
Yes,
my
the
lesson
last
plan.
in the lesson
Do we have
plan.
something
then
else?
we have the teacher's note.
Yes.
The teacher should write down the strength, and as Mr. Majid said,
The weaknesses.
and the weaknesses in the lesson, which enable him to put the future plan to treat with these cases.
So he can write down his
Notes.
notes about everything in the
About
lesson.
everything he did or he does in the lesson.
Good.
Then a teacher should put plan according to his students' ability and levels.
Yes.
According to their abilities and levels, we always speak about this.
Okay.
Teachers have different experiences and teaching different levels, so they must have their own plan. And I would like to add, whatever he had, the plan which he used before, he may follow, he may create, he may add something, but there should be a plan.
I think everything is clear, Ms.
Yes.
Moima. Thank you very much. Mr. Majid, I think we have only 3 minutes, no more.
Okay.
3 minutes.
Okay.
So in 3 minutes or in 2 minutes, let's try to clarify some points about a sample. Let's write a sample of a lesson plan
Okay.
directly, please.
Okay. Can we take the
By hand.
overhead? Well, I'm going to use the overhead. Actually, I'm going to draw something here.
Yes. Would you please use the overhead? Thank you. Thank
Is
you.
the overhead with us? Okay, good. Well, actually, when I start planning, I think about what class I'm teaching. So the class, for example, class 2. I write the subject, Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, etc. Then the date. The date, time
Okay.
of my lesson. Then I write here, sorry, warm up. I give 5 minutes to write questions I'm going to use to warm up my students.
Good.
Here, 1, 2, 3, etc. Then I analyze the lesson to
You mean
get the
when I write
objective.
warm up, Mr. Majid, I write down the time, then I write maybe the activities I can do in the warm-up.
Yes, of course.
What I want to do in the warm-up.
Yes.
How
Then-
can I do the warm-up?
How can-
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. And I write the first objective here. For example, let's say students will be able, or pupils will be able
Two.
to count, for example,
Yes.
from
Etc. Okay.
1 to 10.
We have no time, Mr.
Here,
Mohammed.
I'm
Yes.
going to write the activity.
The
I write
activities.
the tips to myself, how I'm going to teach this,
Okay.
how I'm going to use, what I'm going to use in the classroom so that they be able to count. And I set the time here. For example, the first objective needs 10 minutes.
Good.
I put here 10 minutes.
Yes.
Here, the visual aids. The visual aid
Tools
tools.
used
Yes.
in the
I
lesson.
put the tools, the book, the board,
Anything,
flashcards.
anything.
And here, the
Whatever
evaluation.
Evaluation.
The evaluation.
Again, how I can do
Always, the
evaluation?
evaluation is connected to the behavioral objective.
Of course.
Yes.
If the behavioral objective is students will be able to count from 1 to 10, the evaluation is going to be a verb count
Yes.
from
As I
1
said, start with the verb.
to 10.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
If it is students to give meanings of new words, what is the meaning of,
Yes.
and you write the word.
Yes,
So
yes.
the evaluation is a verb, a question, an order,
Should match the objective. Exactly.
Alright. So, and this evaluation is periodical. I finish presenting
Okay.
here, I start the second objective and I write it here.
I think everything is clear.
Yes.
Thank you. Because time is over, I'm so
Okay.
sorry. I think everything is clear. Of
Yes.
course, we don't forget to at the end of our lesson plan to give the homework to.
Yeah, of course.
And my notes. I can write my notes about everything
Yes.
during the lesson. Well, dear colleagues, I hope our seminar for today will be of great benefit to you. Thank you for watching us. At the end of my seminar, let me thank my colleagues in the studio, Ms. Umayma Sharba, an English supervisor from Tartus, and Mr. Abdelmajid
Thank you.
Oghorli, an English supervisor from
Thank you,
Damascus
thank you so much for
countryside.
being with us.
Thank you for your participation. Dear colleagues, don't forget our next seminar for the next week will be about classroom management. Thank you for watching us, and goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye.